Okay, so since we've already talked about the Russian Revolution a little bit, and hopefully you've watched something on that, um, let's talk about how Animal Farm relates to the Russian Revolution. So, like I said earlier, the Animal Farm is an allegory. So everything is symbolic. So we talked about the different people, the players um, in the Russian Revolution. So let's break down the characters. Okay. So first of all, you have Farmer Jones, who runs Manor Farm, which is the name of the farm there in England, um, and he is symbolic of the Tsar, of Tsar Nicholas II. He doesn't run the farm very well. He comes across as incompetent and not a very good dude. He's got a drinking problem, and the animals don't like him because he's mean to them and he neglects them. Now, if you've never been on a farm or been out in the country or been around those kind of things, farmers are they take care of good farmers take care of their animals. You want to because they're your important part of what you do as a job. So, um, Farmer Jones is not very good. So he represents Nicholas II in his handling of Russia during his rule. Then you have Old Major. Now, Old Major is this old boar hog, so it means he's a male. He's a boar, and he gathers all the animals together in this meeting, and he talks about this dream that he had, where man no longer controls animals. All animals are equal, and they work together for the betterment of everybody. And he talks about how you take man out of everything, and how much better does your life get, right? Um, man takes our eggs, he takes our milk, he takes in some cases, takes our skins, things like that. And it's true. I mean, you think about if you eat eggs, you drink milk, right? They come from somewhere. But he thinks that's awful. But he says he doesn't know when the revolution is going to come. He just knows it's going to come one day. And shortly after that, Old Major dies. And then they have another meeting, and Farmer Jones shows up, and I believe it's a meeting. Maybe we're all just in the barn together, and Farmer Jones comes out with his workers, and there's this big fight. And so they go out there, and there's a big fight, and the animals chase off the. Say hi. There she is. There's Miss Hatch. Okay. Hey, you want your water? You're welcome. So there's a big fight, and you have all the different groups of animals. So let's talk about let me back up. So Farmer Jones is run off the farm. He and his workers and his wife are chased off the farm. They end up going to the Red Lion, this tavern in the closest town, a pub, as they say in England, and there he stays for the majority of the book. So let's talk specifically about the other characters. So the pigs take over. If you've read any in the book, the pigs are sort of the brain trust, right? So, but you have two pigs that kind of take the lead, and that's Snowball and Napoleon. They parallel Lenin and Trotsky. So Snowball is the brains of the operation. He teaches himself to read and write. I guess he talks about pig riding. He sticks the thing between his little cloven hoof, okay, and writes the pencil. But they teach themselves to read and write. He's the brains, and then you have Napoleon, who is sly, and he's a bad dude. This guy will stab you in the back quicker than you can blink. And so he represents, of course, Joseph Stalin. And so a lot of things go on between them. There's some friction, and eventually Snowball is actually chased off the farm, just like Trotsky was chased out of Russia. So there's that. Then you have different groups of animals. Okay, after the revolution happens, you have the horses. Now there's a horse named Clover. Goodness gracious, I'm drawing a blank. What's the name of that other horse? Oh, jeez. Hold on a second. I have to think about that. Hold on a second. Okay, I remember his name now. It's Boxer. So Boxer's this big draft horse. Now, when you think about horses, guys, don't think about quarter horses. Don't think about when you go to the rodeo and watch the girls barrel race, the guys roped up. No, draft horses are the big horses. They got like the hair on their hooves, like Clydesdales, like they pull the Budweiser wagon. Okay, so he's a big draft horse. He represents what what was called the proletariat. That's what Marx called it anyway. The proletariat is the working class, the people who work. Marx felt these are the people that are getting the short end of the stick. When you think about Boxer, he's not overly bright. They actually try to teach him how to read and write. He can't get it. He can barely get a couple of words of the alphabet. So Orwell kind of plays them off as being kind of dumb, not bad people, but Boxer's, he does whatever he's told. In fact, his motto, his maxim are, I will work harder, and Napoleon is always right. So he represents the proletariat. You have the sheep, which represent sheep, who just represent the people who go along with everything. In the meetings that they have, whenever people start to ask questions or dissent and say, why are we doing this? I'm not getting enough to eat. The sheep just start screaming out, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, and to shut everybody up. And they represent the people in the government that just want to shut you up and don't ask any questions, to do what the great leader tells you to do. You have the cat. I don't think the cat represents anything. The cat is just there. The cat doesn't do anything anybody wants him to do. The cat just comes and goes. They even have a debate about rats, right? Whether rats are actually animals they can trust or are friends. And they end up saying, well, even the wild animals are our friends too. You have some of the dogs. They're not really representing anything, but you do have the raven, whose name is Moses, and he's kind of friendly with Jones. Jones would feed him, and ravens are pretty intelligent birds, but Moses flies around the farm and he tells people about this place called Sugar Candy Mountain. He talks about how it's a place where animals don't work, that they have all the food they want to eat. It's a perfect place. Okay, so Moses represents religion. And for communists, you think about communism around the country, around the world, one of the first things they want to get rid of is any kind of mention of God or higher power. The state is God. And so even though there was the Russian Orthodox Church in Russia during the Soviet Union, people went to church, it was controlled by the state. You couldn't speak out, you couldn't say anything, or you'd find yourself imprisoned in Siberia or killed, to be honest with you. So he represents religion. He talks about this great place. The pigs hate Moses because he doesn't do any work, and he fills the animals' heads with these things. And so, and how you doing? You want to talk about Animal Farm? Do you want to overthrow anything? You get your food. All right, you get lots of love. Okay, so and so he represents. There she goes. So he represents religion. Okay, Moses, and they don't like him. They don't want him around. Right? Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's pretty much it. You have a couple of different people that show up. You have Frederick and you have Pilkington. These are neighboring farms, and they represent England and the United States. I can't remember which one represents what, but eventually the pigs start doing business with them, and that's one thing they said they would not do. In fact, they lay out the 10 commandments, the 7 commandments. And let me talk about that real quick. Okay, I've got pretty much all of them almost memorized, but I got to make sure I get them all right. So they come up with the 7 commandments, right? And the commandments are: whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. So basically humans, right? Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. So you might say, well, ducks and chickens, they have 2 legs. Yeah, but they got wings. So whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. No animal shall wear clothes. Okay, that's a human creation. No animal shall sleep in a bed. Okay, that's a human creation. No animal shall drink alcohol. No, they had problems with that with Farmer Jones, right? No animal shall kill any other animal. That's good. And then all animals are equal. All right, so they start out with these 7 commandments, and everything is great, but it doesn't take too long. You start getting into the early chapters, you realize that things are not going exactly the way you think they would. The animals start to catch on that things aren't always equal around here. In fact, some things start happening, and the commandments get changed. They eventually kill an animal, And so they changed the commandment to no animal shall kill another animal without cause. And the pigs start living in the house, and they start sleeping in beds. And the animals go like, hey, you're sleeping in a bed. There's a commandment right there that says, you shall not sleep in a bed. Well, then they change it to, no animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets. Well, they have no sheets. That's a human creation. Okay, so the pigs, Napoleon and the rest of his pig buddies, they take control. And they rule with an iron fist. And anybody who doesn't do what they want them to do, they get into trouble. They disappear. They also have this one pig, and I forgot to mention, his name is Squealer. Perfect name for this guy. Squealer is this really, he's a pain in the rear. He is the propagandist of Animal Farm. Communists are really good at propaganda. They tell you how great everything is when everything is not great. Okay? And so Squealer is the mouthpiece or the spokesman for Napoleon. And he tells everybody, he knows that most of the proletariat, these animals, they're not very smart. They can't read very well, because one of the things that Stalin did after taking control was he started killing off intellectuals, started imprisoning or killing people who were, doctors and lawyers, these very intelligent people who could read and write, and intellectuals, because they knew they would start questioning, saying, why are you doing this? So Napoleon does the same thing. And so there again is that parallel between the Russian Revolution and the rise of communism and Animal Farm. And that's what Orwell's getting at. He's really driving home this piece of, this is what happens when you give power, unlimited power, to a one person or a small group of people. And so going back to Squealer, he goes back and does all this. Towards the end of the book, you see what the pigs have become. And one of the most poignant and thought-provoking moments in Animal Farm is when somebody changes the seventh commandment, which in the beginning was all animals are equal. But they change it to all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. I mean, there's a different set of rules for certain people, and everybody else, you're just too bad, so sad. So there's a little bit of a description of the different allegorical symbols in Animal Farm. If you read the book simply as a story, you'd come away with, man, those pigs are mean, those poor animals that had to suffer from these guys. But when you look at it from the information I'm giving you now, it makes total sense as to why Orwell wrote it. In fact, there's a funny story. When it was first written, he went into a bookstore to find a copy of it. It was first published, and he went into a bookstore and he couldn't find his book. And he finally looked around, and he walked around to the children's section, and it was in the children's section. And he's like, no, this is not a children's book. It's over here, because it was called Animal Farm. They thought, well, it's about animals, so it's got to be over here in the children's section, the juvenile fiction section. But no, it's certainly not. It's definitely an important book in the 20th century, and it still has application to us today. So I hope you enjoy reading it. So if you can get yourself a copy, please do so. Hopefully I'm going to put these up on YouTube. If you have any comments, guys, you can ask questions. I'll try to respond to those. I don't know when we're going to get back together again because of this virus. So I miss you guys, and happy reading.